Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Wrestling Discussions. On today's episode. As promised, today's going to be a little bit of a bigger episode than that of yesterday's. Hopefully, it's a little longer than yesterday's, and it will have more topics than just one, than just going over one simple show. Now, in yesterday's episode, I unfortunately did not get to go over my predictions for Vengeance Day. It was a little late for me to do that. However, I am going to go over the results from last night's NXT Vengeance Day. Now, first, I do just want to say this right now. From what I've heard and from what I've seen, it does seem as though Vengeance Day did very well for itself. The matches did very well for itself. I haven't heard many complaints. I myself have one complaint regarding a match, which I will. It is the match I will start with right now. None other than Wesley versus Dijak for the NXT North American Championship. Now, for those of you who maybe haven't seen my previous videos or maybe haven't followed me for very long, I have been saying for the past 2 weeks, I want to say, that Dijak deserves the NXT North American Championship. That the NXT North American Championship is Dijak. Like, it is what he's been searching for. It's what he's been after his entire NXT career. And once again, he's been screwed over. Wesley beat Dijak last night. First of all, how the hell does Wesley beat Dijak? Is my question. Dijak is hands down one of the best wrestlers. And no offense to Wesley, but Wesley is still a beginner compared to that of Dijak. Wesley is still getting involved. He's still getting his foot through the door. Dijak is this larger-than-life athlete who was finally given a chance to bring out his old yet new persona, while at the same time finally getting what he's been searching for, what he's been sought after for how long, which is the NXT North American Championship. And once again, NXT kind of screwed the pooch. And I'll admit, ever since NXT went to NXT 2.0, there have been many things that I've seen that I am disappointed in when getting to talk about NXT. And I'm not blaming anyone in specific. I'm just saying that NXT really went downhill from the black and gold brand. And I want to see it start to come back up. And I think Dijak as NXT North American champion would have been very good for that. I think it would have helped put over a lot of wrestlers. But instead, that's not what we got. Hopefully later down the line, we will get that, or at least maybe Dijak moves up to the main roster at this point, because he deserves more than what he's getting right now. Now, we also saw Chance and Carter defend their NXT Women's Tag Team Championships against Henley and James. Now, obviously, Henley and James lately, they've been feuding, and it looks as though they're friends now. They're teaming up. I don't know. They beat Chance and Carter, became NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, which doesn't surprise me. Chance and Carter, it was their time. They've had the women's tag titles for a little while now. They've defended them a few times here, and I think it was their time. I think it was their moment. I think they had a great run as NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, and I think it was time to pass the torch. What this means for them, I don't know. Like, are they going to continue in the tag women's division? I sure hope so, because no offense, I don't see either of them going singles right now, at least not anytime soon. I could very well see them go into the main roster and fight Damage Control, but at the same time, I can't see that, because even on the main roster, there isn't a big, hold in terms of women's tag division. It's all singles for the most part here lately. And so I really don't know what to say in terms of what could be next for Chance and Carter. It just kind of depends on NXT and where they want to take the women's division next. Now, we also saw Carmello Hayes defeat Apollo Crews in a 2 out of 3 falls match. This is incredibly interesting because this is like a passing of the torch, right? Apollo Crews, one of the biggest guys in NXT right now. One of the guys that seems to be really getting over with NXT due to just everything. And he's passing the torch on to Carmelo Hayes. Now, this is very, I think a lot of people were expecting this. Carmelo Hayes is one of the most current uprising stars in NXT. He's been Since coming to NXT, he's been like a fire was shot lit under his feet, and he's just been, blasting off into space from day one. He's been ready to go. And his gimmick has always been great. His promo work has always been great. Him with a championship has always been great. Him with the North American Championship was one of his best gimmicks because him as the A champion was some of the most entertaining stuff you'd see on TV. Um, Not to mention that Carmelo Hayes is just a natural in ring kind of guy. He is so talented, and it reminds me of Bryan Danielson versus Daniel Garcia in the sense that it's two guys that I think are very much alike in their ring styles. They're very much alike in the way they kind of carry themselves at times, and I think it's like a passing of the torch kind of moment. So I'm very proud for Carmelo Hayes. I think 100% he deserves it. On top of that, we saw Gallus defeat the New Day, Chase U, and Pretty Deadly in a fatal 4-way tag match to win the NXT Tag Team titles. My prediction was wrong. AOP did not show up. I kept saying, Authors of Pain might come back, Authors of Pain might get involved. Unfortunately, they weren't there. As far as I know as well, William Regal wasn't there either, as far as I'm aware, which sucks. Because as far as we were made aware of, he was going to be back on the very beginning of January, the first pay-per-view of NXT. I haven't seen him, and so this is very disappointing. I am very disappointed with that. But Gallus is the new NXT Tag Champs. Congratulations to them. I think they 100% deserve it. I think they've deserved it ever since NXT UK. That's the one thing I disliked about NXT UK, because when you went to NXT UK, you still didn't go up to the main roster right away. You went to NXT and then the main roster. And Gallus was on NXT UK for years. They were two guys that like originated NXT UK. They were like NXT UK originals. And they were still never given an opportunity for a very long time, and they finally been given that opportunity. They've finally been put in NXT. They've finally been put for the titles. They've been given the titles, and I really want to see Gallus run with it. I am very disappointed right now with the NXT tag division, because we are seeing the same names over and over again. Pretty Deadly. Pretty Deadly has been the only team I've been hearing about when talking about the tag division in NXT, when talking about the titles. That or Malik Blade and Idris Anafe, or Chase U. But Chase U, teams that, in my opinion, aren't anywhere on the caliber of Gallus. Gallus can really use this to their advantage. They can really start to put over a number of different teams, and I really want to see them do that. I really want get Brooks and Jensen in here. Briggs and Brooks, or whatever their names are, and get more teams in here, get more developmental going, and just really start to do something with it. Because in my opinion, I don't know how to explain it, but in my opinion, NXT is just it's not what it used to be for me. It's not as entertaining, it's not as on par as it once was, and it's really just kind of disappointing to me in it a little bit. Now, for the women's match, triple threat between Roxanne Perez, Gigi Dolan, and Jacy Jayne for the NXT Women's Championship. Roxanne Perez did successfully defend her women's title. I'm not surprised. Roxanne Perez, obviously this was her first title defense. Obviously this was her first pay-per-view as NXT Women's Champion, and she really showed up. She really, this was her time to shine. This was her moment. She beat Jacy Jayne and Gigi Dolan. On top of that, I think Gigi Dolan is finally starting to kind of get a fire lit under her feet. I think Gigi Dolan is finally going to start getting a more progressive storyline. And I say that because Jacy Jayne was always kind of the girl, even when they were doing the contract signing, it sounds like Jacy Jayne was always kind of the girl to immediately kind of get into that standalone kind of thing. And she's the girl that is most expected to kind of come out on top from this. And whereas Gigi Dolan seems to be treated as more of the baby, as the the little sister, the one that's pushed aside and not really focused on. And so last night, it seems as though they were really trying to utilize Gigi Dolan and maybe put her into something new coming up, moving on down the line, which doesn't surprise me. I think it's good. I think it'll benefit the women's division. On top of that, we saw in our main event, Braun Breaker versus Grayson Waller in a steel cage match. Braun Breaker did successfully retain his NXT Championship. I'm not going to say I'm disappointed. I am a little surprised that they didn't go with Grayson Waller for this, due to the simple fact that the story was there. The moments were there. Grayson Waller, like if they were ever going to give Grayson Waller the NXT Championship, this would, like if they were ever going to take the belt off of Braun Breaker, this was one of the most perfect storylines to do it, in the sense that this was a guy that week after week kind of had Breaker's number, right? Like he was ready for Breaker. He had mind games with Breaker. He was able to really get to Breaker. And on top of that, this was a guy that in the ring, he was unpredictable for Braun Breaker. Like every time Braun Breaker thought he had Grayson Waller figured out in the ring, Grayson Waller surprised him. He was able to adjust. And he honestly, in my opinion, if the match kept going at New Year's Evil, I think we could have very well seen a new NXT champion. And I think that's what the whole point of that storyline was to make people come to that conclusion. Like, oh, if it wasn't for that, we would have seen a new NXT champion. And now, because of the steel cage and blah, 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 we don't see a new NXT champion. However, we could very well be getting a new NXT champion very soon. Carmello Hayes came out after the match was over, and it looks like Carmello Hayes is calling a shot. It looks like we are finally getting what we've been wanting for over a year. Carmello Hayes versus Braun Breaker for the NXT Championship. I think this is another long-term storyline thing, in the sense that for every time Carmello Hayes was NXT Champion, which was for most of 2022, he was by far this character and this guy who was the A-champ. He was what he considered to be the best and most talked about and most sought after champion in all of NXT. Whereas Braun Breaker was NXT champion, the world champion of NXT, and was just being overlooked by Carmelo Hayes. And so I think this is an interesting storyline now, because now, without having the NXT North American Championship anymore, without being able to reattain the NXT North American Championship, Carmelo Hayes is looking at Braun Breaker now. He's looking at the NXT Championship now. He's looking at what Braun Breaker has. And this is another interesting predicament. And so I'm very surprised by that. I'm very intrigued by that, and I want to see where that's going to go. All that being said, though, major congratulations to Braun for the retaining. And I can only imagine that when we get to NXT Stand and Deliver, we will see Carmelo Hayes versus Braun Breaker for the NXT Championship. That is my that's my thought. That's what's going through my head as we get closer and closer to Stand and Deliver. Now, we are going to talk a little bit about the Wyatt family. Now, there's been a lot of talk about who's Uncle Howdy, who's the guy behind the mask. There's been a lot of rumors that it's Bo Dallas, and there's been a lot of talk about Bo Dallas here lately. There's been talk about him dating Liv Morgan. There's been talk about the Wyatts, Bray Wyatt and his family, and what's next for the Wyatt family, like what's next for Bray Wyatt's storyline. On SmackDown, we got a little bit of a little bit of a show from him, in the sense that we saw him on the rocking chair, and Uncle Howdy shows up. His mask goes, like, he just randomly appears, jump scares everyone, and then we cut back to regular TV. The thing with that is, though, it doesn't really give us any information. It doesn't really give us any idea on what's next for Bray Wyatt, who's next for Bray Wyatt, if you will. Hopefully on Monday Night Raw we'll see something with Alexa Bliss. That's my hope. Because I think she is the next piece. I think the first piece was Bray Wyatt fighting and defeating LA Knight, because LA Knight was what brought Bray Wyatt to this point, which was what brought him back into this headspace that he's been, that the people have been wanting him to get back into, that Uncle Howdy has been trying to coerce him back into. And now Uncle Howdy, I think, is trying to coerce Alexa Bliss back into this storyline, back into her old storyline. And so I think it's very safe to say that Uncle Howdy is pulling the strings right now. Uncle Howdy is the puppeteer, if you will, which I think makes for a very interesting story. I think it makes for a very interesting idea of what is next for everyone, right? What's next? Moving down the line, going into all of this, because all of this is very important and very vital to that of the career of Bray Wyatt, to that of the career of Alexa Bliss, and whoever this Uncle Howdy is. I am also going to say this, while we're here, Booker T has supposedly officially announced his retirement. It seems as though he has no interest in wanting to get back into the ring after the Royal Rumble. He had commented and said, my body, the Royal Rumble it was kind of a way of telling me, that had to be it. That's gotta be it. And I don't blame him. I think it's a smart choice. I think he really only wrestled for maybe less than 2 minutes. And so I do think that it's understandable at this point that he's going to want to kind of slow down, take a breather, take a break, which I completely respect, completely understand. Dude's a legend. Dude's met legend status already. Dude's met Hall of Famer status twice now. He has nothing left to prove in his career, not to us, the fans, not to the people in the back, not to even himself, in my opinion anyway, because he's done it all. He, especially back like in the early 2000s when he was, like a mixture of like the WCW champion and the WCW and US champ, when he was he's been in his prime before. He's done so much that there is to do in this business, and there's no shame in saying, my body just can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. There's no shame in saying that. There's no shame in laying the belt down, and I'm very happy for him. I'm very pleased for that, because I think it's Booker T's time. I think he had a great run when he had it, and I think it's time to kind of just say, listen, what's done is done. Now, I am going to talk about 2 more topics, because like I said, I promised you guys a couple different topics to talk about besides just Vengeance Day. So I'm going to talk about 2 more, starting with WWE 2K23. Now, WWE 2K23 has announced it's had a lot of big updates here these past few days. If you pre-order it, you can get it by March 14th. That is if you get the Icon or the Deluxe editions. Now, the Icon or Deluxe editions are a much heftier price. Deluxe coming in at $100. Icon coming in at $120. The game itself, like just the basic copy of the game itself, is coming in at $70, which is $10 extra than what it usually does. Now, I'm not sure if this is due to pre-order or if this is what the game is going to be at stock price after it's already released. Either way, though, I still recommend it. I've seen leaks. I've seen footage of what this is going to be like. I've seen people play it. It definitely looks like, if you compare it, I've seen it compared to other, like to 2K22, and the graphics have definitely improved. Even if not as noticeable, they have improved. Entrances have 100% improved. Like animation sequences for entrances have improved. I heard that it seems they actually changed a lot, to be quite honest with you. It seems that because they added double titles now, so like, and many people are questioning, is this just for Roman Reigns? Is it for everyone? My hope is that it's for everyone, or at least for Roman Reigns and the Usos, rather than just Roman Reigns. But even if it's just for Roman Reigns, it's still something. It's still something that is, I think important and cool to see. And so one way or another, that's nice. There's also been talk that maybe they'll add back some features that people have been wanting, like damaging face paint during a match. There's been talk of that. There's been talk of potentially seeing a couple different things. Now, in terms of the War Games match, I've been taking a look at it here lately. It does seem a little different than what we're used to, from what I found. So I don't know if there's more to come. Maybe I don't have all the information yet. But so far, from what I've seen, it's starting out as a 6-man War Games rather than an 8-man, or a 10-man. Now, I'm not arguing with that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Just simple information that I've found out about so far. Again, this is just from what I've seen so far and what WWE 2K23 has been willing and able to release to the public so far in terms of gameplay footage. And so I don't know if there's actually more to it or if this is all they could get to right now for this game. Maybe in 24 we'll get more. I'm not sure. However, all that being said, I still highly recommend getting the game. I think this is going to be very entertaining. From what I've seen, you can even get weapons when playing in a War Games match. You can even grab weapons and you can really get involved, which I think is very entertaining. I think it's very fun to do, and I really want to see people do. I really want to get this game personally myself. If you guys want to know what edition I'm planning on getting, my plan is to get the Icon edition. $120 is quite a bit of money, yes, but that cover is everything to me in my opinion, and I would love to get to have that cover and call myself one of the guys that has the amazing cover edition of John Cena with the spinner belt, because it just brings back so many memories to me, and I love to have that cool art style, that cool image, everything. Um, and comment down below what edition you guys want. Comment down below what features you guys are hoping to see. I'm sure, obviously not everything's going to be in the game that, people want, but there's going to be quite a bit. In fact, as far as I'm aware, if you get, I believe it's the Icon edition, it might be the same if you get the Deluxe edition, you can get Bad Bunny early. You can get him early, like you don't have to pay extra DLC or whatever. You can get him in the game. Bad Bunny's supposedly gonna be in it. Logan Paul's gonna be in it, from what I've heard. And so there's a lot of confirmations for this game already as we're talking about it, as we're getting into it. And so they already released the video of Cody Rhodes' entrance, and I just gotta say, Cody Rhodes' entrance by far looks so good. Um, I'm very ready for that. I'm really excited for that. And if you guys have any opinions or thoughts on it, comment them down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Now, moving on to our last topic of the night. For those of you that haven't seen it or don't know, Cody Rhodes was recently on an episode of Impulsive with Logan Paul, Mike Malak, and George Janko. He was asked about his torn pec injury, and Cody Rhodes going into full detail with it, discussing the injury, discussing the stubbornness of said injury, and even went into talk about he even leaked some merchandise that is supposedly going to be coming out. One of them being a Funko Pop of him at Hell in a Cell with the black and blue purple injured torn pec, and I'm just gonna say that right now, I am 100% getting that. That's going straight in my collection as the minute that comes out. So, just a heads up for anyone that's like, you want that, get on it, because keep an eye out for it. There's also been, ideas of potential shirts coming out for it. Not sure if anyone's interested in that, but he did talk a little bit about that. He talked a little bit about the injury. He even recently shared a potential dream match that he'd like to have against Edge. And Edge, this is interesting to me because, as I mentioned before on this podcast, Edge has stated in the past, well, not stated, I shouldn't say that. There's been rumors here lately that Edge is supposedly going to retire at WrestleMania. Now, I'm not saying these rumors are true, but I'm also not saying they're false. So just keep a lookout for them. Keep your ears open, that sort of thing. Always listen for it. And if you guys get any new information, please comment down below. Feel free to share. And that's gonna close out tonight's episode. Again, on the Edge and Cody Rhodes thing, I think it would be entertaining to see the two fight, but it also kind of depends on where it goes, later down the line. what happens after WrestleMania, that sort of thing. So it just kind of depends on everything. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to close out tonight's episode. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, any thoughts on my different opinions, if you want me to elaborate on my opinions, feel free to comment down below. Feel free to ask me questions. And feel free to recommend certain topics that you want me to discuss and, dive deeper into. But stay tuned for tomorrow's episode. I'm going to be talking about Monday Night Raw amongst a couple other things, and I'll catch you there. So, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.